Alright. Sembilan. Tapi I guess Zaf dah ada. Okay, kita tunggu sekejap lah. Biar air dulu, boleh-boleh. Ambil. Snack dulu. Oh, okay. Yeah, think uang pun dah ada. Ni boleh lah start. So, Bel, okay lah. Recording semua. Uh, okay, boleh baca kat soal. I guess, Hello everyone. Selamat malam. Assalamualaikum. Hari ni kita akan discuss sikit pasal on the Terraform project yang Zaf hari ni, Zaf yang ada join dah ni. Dia publish open source the Terraform project, Terraform repo for his project Regülar. Yeah, so I guess, I mean the idea for me like sebab apa aku nak buat session ni is mainly because especially for beginners lah. If you're looking like beginners, biasanya diorang tak ada kalau unless kau macam masuk join a company that has memang dah ada like proper Terraform code base. Biasanya bila kau belajar Terraform, kau akan belajar like just create resource, apply, tapi tak ada pun yang akan ajar macam mana how do you structure Terraform repo properly so that it can scale for your team lah. So that's why I think it's also banyak yang it's hard to find any Terraform project out there, especially yang in production, yang actually tunjuk macam mana kau boleh structure your Terraform project. So bila even aku myself, aku pernah nak try buat tu, tapi sebab aku tak ada anything yang running in production except selain daripada yang tempat kerja, which is private, so tak boleh nak tunjuk kan. So this one bila Zaf publish his open source repo, so I think it's a good chance for all of us to belajar lah, look at a thing or two, maybe you can take some things from there. Okay. I guess, first introduce Zaf. Maybe, you can introduce yourself, your project Regülar, and then, maybe start there, like introduce yourself and your project Regülar first.
Alright, nama Zafran, boleh panggil Zaf. Sebelum ni buat projek regular pakai Ruby on Rails. Sebelum tu ada juga projek banyak. So Terraform tu sebenarnya je evolve daripada sebelum-sebelum punya projek lah. Pakai Terraform untuk projek Rails regular tu. Sekarang projek tu dah tak live. But I guess it's going to be a good experience for everyone to learn from it. So yeah, I'm just publishing that.
Okay, nice. Also one thing I wanna ask, like probably first question, sebab apa pakai Terraform untuk your project ni? Like you can also like really like just click and configure it from the AWS console directly. So the first question will be like, why do you use Terraform instead?
First one untuk learning experience. Tak pernah lagi try project Terraform. Company pun ada try pakai Terraform tapi yang untuk company lah. So kita pun tak dapat touch code tu. Dia lebih kepada nak learning dan kita akan apply sendiri lah.
Okay.
Lagi satu project ni banyak click and here and there and mostly untuk documentation. Start daripada VPC until deployment, the whole process trying to learn the whole thing. So as a learning experience as well, combine together and there you go.
Cool. Yeah. Just to set the context, the Terraform structure yang kita tengok nanti is made by Zaf because dia macam one man team kan. So is probably a bit different from what you'll see usually at the companies in terms of how it's structured itself. But nanti bila sampai nanti aku akan comment like how people would do differently in terms of that. But before that, because I think based on the response dapat kat Twitter and also some yang DM me said there's probably also a lot of beginners to Terraform here. So I'll do like a briefly like around 5 minute crash course to Terraform in general, how it works. So let me see if I can share my screen. Wait. Okay. Okay, boleh nampak screen kan. So ada orang minta dark mode, so kita dark mode lah. Ni asalnya santan ni. Tapi bila dia dark mode jadi macam apa tak tu. Okay. So yeah, essentially so untuk beginner what Terraform is. Terraform ni is one of the tools that you can use to untuk provision ataupun create semua resources yang any resources yang cloud even yang accessible by API, so you can do it using Terraform. So in general how Terraform works is there's a thing called Terraform states and Terraform state files. So by default, bila kau run apply, dia akan save it to locally. So in general, what state file is just your local copy of the current resource yang available, yang dah provision. So for example, here there's like the workflow. For example, di center dia nak create satu S3 bucket untuk keep all the list of the untuk hadiah kan. So they create sini a Terraform code here. This is like a structure for Terraform code lah. So the name resource and then the resource type. So kat sini kita ada AWS S3 bucket and then nama untuk resource tu kita letak sini hadiah. And then what happens is in Terraform kita akan apply bila kita nak tulis this code, kita akan run Terraform apply. And what will happen is that the Terraform itself, we do like a couple things. So first, it will check the state file whether like some other resource ni AWS S3 bucket hadiah ni based on the nama kat sini exists in the state file. So bila dia detect yang AWS bucket hadiah doesn't exist in the state file, maknanya dia akan assume yang resource tu pun tak ada lagi dekat S3. So and they can also try to query the AWS API and then we'll try to create the resource we'll call the AWS API to create the bucket itself. And then bila contoh successfully return the operation is completed successfully, then Terraform will also update the state file and then masukkan this AWS S3 bucket hadiah in the list of the resources yang dah provision lah. So essentially, whenever you run Terraform apply, the Terraform command itself will make API call to the AWS API in this case, and then we'll check whether the resource exists or not in the actual S3. So this briefly on that. Wait, nanti ada question ke ni? Nama hadiah boleh sama dengan hadiah 2024. Mana nama hadiah? Oh, nama sini. So essentially these two things lah. So nama yang hadiah yang dekat sini. Wait, let me do this. There's a pointer. So this one, hadiah yang atas ni is just for Terraform itself to keep untuk dia keep the state up to date. So nampak kat sini, bila dalam state file dia akan guna nama hadiah. Tapi yang kat bawah ni bucket hadiah 2024 tu is just for the everything inside this what you call that curly braces, semua ni adalah untuk the API itself. So nanti bila letak hadiah 2024 ni maknanya dekat AWS resource, the bucket will be named hadiah 2024. So in terms of naming, it's two complete separate thing lah. Tapi you can still like here for example, you nak pakai hadiah 2024 juga boleh ha. So here like instead of having a different name pun boleh pakai ada nama yang sama lah. And then another question there, who or what's responsible to keep the state file up to date? So in general, when you run Terraform, usually the Terraform CLI itself will keep the state file up to date. Every time you run Terraform plan, it will look at it, and every time you run Terraform apply, it will update the state file. Tapi there are some options that you this is more for advanced user lah. Macam you notice some things and you want to remove some things from the state file. The Terraform CLI commands also allows you to do that manually. But usually, because Terraform state file is just a JSON file, it's not recommended to manually modify the JSON file. So any operation that is done to the state file should be done through the Terraform command instead. Yeah. So there's that. So yeah, I think that should answer it. Okay. Soalan Audin tu nanti kita get through, nanti bila kita go through the for production, the code base. So a little bit more on the Terraform itself. So let's say just now tadi kita dah create satu AWS S3 bucket hadiahnya. So now bila dekat our code kita tambah lagi, kita nak create AWS database for all the naughty kids, right, nakal. So kita this is a this resource doesn't exist. This I just created. Let's say ada resource nama AWS database untuk create, and then for our Terraform use case, we'll put the name here Naka, but then the actual DB name will be this. And then bila kita run Terraform apply, first macam aku cakap tadi lah, first dia akan check all the resources in that project whether it exists in the state file. So here dia tunjuk, okay, bila kita run apply, dia akan check dua-dua. AWS S3 bucket hadiah and database nakal is whether both of them exist in the state file. And then here dia notice yang ni dah exist, dah ada, tapi yang sini tak ada lagi. So what it will do, it will call and then also actually just create the one that's still missing, the database nakal inside. So call the AWS API to create the DB, and then once the result is completed, it will update the state file to add this database nakal to the state file lah. So essentially, what I'm trying to say here is most like Terraform is like an abstraction layer to the API calls that you make to the provider lah. For example, here kita pakai provider AWS. So all this code is just for you to define declaratively how like the resources that you want to exist, and then Terraform will figure out what API calls to make and to create the resources and update all the states lah. So that's one of the key things. I think kalau if you want to learn Terraform, you should know that it's just a wrapper around APIs and that will call the APIs for you. That's even, let me see, Terraform provider Dominoes. I think if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So there's even this one. This is just for fun lah. There's even because Domino's Pizza, they are the API. Alright. So any API you can actually literally, if there's a provider for it, you can use Terraform with it. So this one guy wrote a provider for Domino's. So essentially you can order Domino's, make an order with Domino's to order pizza using Terraform. So it's just a definite what do you call that, abstraction or wrapper around the APIs. Okay. What's this? Kena define resource macam AWS database tu ada. Okay. Untuk soalan Farhan tu tanya kalau kita nak define resource, nak tahu resource apa yang available tu, macam Nazan dah bagi link tu, kena tengok Terraform registry. So Terraform registry is the place where you will see all the resources available, all the provider available. So here sini macam nampak kan. So database usage for database, maybe there's a database here. So there's that. I think so that's gonna be it for our brief intro to Terraform for those beginners. So now I think we'll get to the code itself. Where do I have it? Forgot. Lupa nak buka. No, I have it here. Sorry. VS Code. Okay. So kat sini we have the regular IO Terraform repo for the Terraform one. So we can see here I've got the notes sikit, tapi macam kita can see here that first especially if you're using it for different environments. Tadi Odin ada tanya kan kalau Terraform untuk MV production macam mana nak buat kan. So this is actually one of the ways you can do lah. So literally this you can separate it by the environment that you're using it. So it's actually here, let's say you got a production environment, lepas tu ada satu lagi staging environment. So make it explicit lah. This kat sini kita letak explicit staging and production in two different what do you call that? Two different folders. Terraform actually allows other, I think it's still here, Terraform workspace. There's this option to use Terraform workspace. Tapi what Terraform workspace will do will actually macam dia akan manipulate gate sikit. So bila kita boleh tukar workspace, so earlier masa aku baru belajar dulu ada gak some guide yang cakap okay for each environment kena pakai satu Terraform workspace yang lain. Tapi I think nowadays most of the guide most of the guide online they don't really use Terraform workspace anymore sebab nanti it's easily to get like lupa, I forgot lah, tiba-tiba aku kat production ke staging workspace, lepas tu tiba-tiba salah deploy kat production kan. So it's better to just be explicit and then both in the same branch just use different folders for it altogether. Yep. So this one here, and then in this part here, there's two things I put notes here. All resources defined in one folder and all resources defined in main TF. I think this one is interesting lah. So I think Zaf probably tanya sikit sini. So other than these two, production and staging, like what made you decide to do it this way, like all in one main.tf file? Yeah.
Again, documentation for me. As you can see, there's a lot of modules out there, and
Yeah.
in the modules there's a ACS forget and everything. I get lost. Semua benda ni boleh intentionally get forgotten. So semuanya aku letak dalam main.tf, and then if you go from up to down, that's literally the process that I did from VPC until the end. Like right now, I honestly I forgot about all of this, but if I go to the code base again, I can tell you what are the things that I'm doing at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely macam sebab Zaf mention it's easier for him to manage all of it, right? So but I think if you look this is in the context of a single developer, I think you don't really notice anything. Everything in one main file.tf is okay because sebab kau ada seorang yang writing to the code, right?
True.
So but then the one thing that you'll see when you're working in a team, especially if you've got multiple contributors to the same code, is that kalau aku akan tend to separate it to a different file for each like the module itself here, or like this logical separation. For network, I'll put like here, for example, I'll do like a network.tf file. So what I will do is that it's literally so how Terraform works itself, Terraform bila kita run, for example, kalau aku pergi dekat this folder, this folder, and then aku run Terraform apply, it will actually find all the files with the .tf ending and will detect all of the resources defined in there. So usually I would separate it like that by that one. Main reason is for that is that especially if you're working in you have automation tools like Atlantis or something to run the Terraform apply for you, and especially if you're using Git, if you put all in the same main.tf repo, nanti senang nak dapat merge conflict ah. So that's one of the things, especially working in a team. You'll try to make it to a separate file just because of this easier to collaborate with others. It's just not to say that this way salah. Macam aku cakap tadi lah, in the context of this repo, Zaf is like a single developer doing it for his own. Like there's only one developer writing to it, so all in one main.tf makes sense here. So, but like I said, if in a team, usually you would see that people would actually separate it to different files for like a logical separation lah. So that's one thing. And then also interesting here is dia pakai module. That's really nice way to abstract things. So maybe question also, untuk Zaf, how do you decide what to put in a module and how do you separate the modules?
Modules. So far yang aku ingat kita ada production dengan staging. Almost 90% of the stuff in production and staging are shared. It's just like a common folder. And that's where I put all the models. If I put it in there, and then it just can be reused in the MV. That was
Yep.
the main concern.
So it's this sharing of the same code base, like the same resource. So rather than copy pasting between production and staging, you put it in the module instead, right?
Yep. And
Nice,
also
nice.
kalau contoh aku ada modify something dekat staging,
Yep.
and I want to apply that to production because this is now in modules, I can easily do that.
Yep, that's true, that's true. Okay, touching about modules, in Terraform itself, there are multiple ways you can host your module. So yang this one, macam Zaf buat ni, dia letak modules ni directly in the repo itself. And then when referring to the modules, dia refer pakai path macam ni je. So that's one way. I think that's also the simplest way to manage modules. Sebab bila update module, you always like macam Zaf cakap lah, macam tadi, bila update modules, update dekat staging, production boleh terus apply terus, tak payah nak tukar anything. So one other way is that people will actually use kind of like a source and then put some Git ref. So it will refer to a specific Git version or specific separate. If you put modules, all the modules in separate repo, so it will refer to a separate repo and it will pull as explicit version for that repo. So that's one other way if you can manage modules. But this one is actually, I think also like this is the easiest way, and for any team just starting with the Terraform, I will actually like recommend to just put the Terraform modules in the same folder as the code base, but to less things to handle until later when you got extra use cases where you want to have a different, not always get the latest module version. Oh, wait, where am I? Anything? Let's go here. Macam mana Terraform decide setting for the resources, i.e. S3 classes, performance type? Soalan daripada Willow T. So untuk tu biasanya for Terraform is AWS S3 bucket. So it all depends on what kind of resource parameters that you give to the Terraform resource. For example, here AWS S3 bucket, dia ada banyak option yang kita boleh pass through, bucket prefix, object look. So there are a lot more lah. So kalau there are always, so essentially how it look like this. Kalau the thing that you want to do is available to be done through the AWS API, then that means it should also be able to be done through Terraform. Kalau tak ada, maknanya probably there is some new feature or beta feature yang people haven't updated the Terraform resource yet for it. So it depends on the resource itself. So the best way is usually you will go to the Terraform registry and check the resource and see what's available. Okay. What's this? Okay, we have a bit soalan question side a bit. Terraform and OpenTofu. Yeah, this one is mostly license issue thing. But it's generally Terraform is HashiCorp is the company that creates Terraform. So they're not doing, and so they prevent other company from providing Terraform as a product. So that's why there's the OpenTofu project that essentially, I think from my perspective, OpenTofu and Terraform for now is no difference yet. It's still too early to say what's the difference. Kalau guna untuk company, adakah company akan dikenakan tindakan? So I think the BSL license in general, kalau company guna untuk internal only, bukan offer as a product, it's okay. You won't get affected, you won't get a suit. Tapi yang problem yang aku pernah tengok lah, it's like dia panggil second order effect, I think, or something like that, where essentially your company itself tak akan affected, tapi sebab, for example, if you use your company uses other provider like Spacelift. So macam let me just open here, Spacelift. So Spacelift is one of the providers that offer macam Terraform Cloud. So it's competing with Terraform Cloud. So if you use Spacelift and Spacelift tak boleh nak pakai Terraform, so that means your company have to use OpenTofu. So that's the second of the effect I was talking about lah. But in general, if you use Terraform directly and then you use something like the free and open source like Run Atlantis, like this one is a good product. Then you won't need tak perlu fikir lah pasal license issue because this product is free. It's not like any business competing with it. How you set up with AWS user account? So okay, that's interesting. So Odin tanya how do you set up different AWS user account kalau wait, ni pakai set up AWS user account ke pakai AWS user account dengan Terraform? Actually, there's one thing I want to show lah here pasal provider ni. So here kalau kita tengok Zaf, there's one way pasal configuring the AWS provider. For this one, you can see that dia pass in semua sebagai variable. So that's one way to do it. And then here pakai AWS access key and secret access key. There's no issue with that. Yeah. But also there's another way, especially specifically for the AWS provider, you can do it is like instead of manually specifying it yourself, all of this and passing it into the code, you can do like just refer to an existing AWS profile. For example, you got a staging profile locally, and then from there you can see AWS provider is smart enough to actually look at the current profile setup. So contoh in your AWS, you already got configured in the .aws config, semua dah configure. So the AWS will automatically pick it up. So that's one thing. As well, let me look what else I have here. I think I have notes. Yeah, okay, this is the AWS provider using Terraform modules. Just now kita dah cakap. This one also dah cakap. About module composition. So this module composition is one of the best practices when using Terraform. Generally what it says, so instead of, sebab, okay, contoh sekarang dalam code ni, kita ada modules kan. Dalam code ni kita ada modules. And then what module composition means, the best practices is to do like this lah. Instead of, so we have the separate modules that work together. And then here kita nampak module.network. Kita mula set up the network here. Lepas tu, when other module want to use that network, you can see that Zaf did, you just refer to that module. So we have module RDS, you pass it in the output of the network module. So let me see kalau module.network. Network. So this Terraform output. So this module have an output. Semua ni output daripada module tu, meaning kita boleh pakai output ni untuk refer, untuk pass into other modules. So here, look again, modules.network. Oops, module.network. We can see yang module ni kita pass into the as a input parameter to other module. So this is what I call as a module composition. So the idea is in Terraform with module composition, kita tak nak bagi dia too nested. So instead of having letak this module, so instead of letak module.network inside RDS, so kita create it separately kat luar, lepas tu kita just pass in the variable that we need outside here. It's all on the same level. Yeah, I think because dependency inversion, everything is easier to manage lah. So anyone interested boleh baca pasal this on the module composition. Quite interesting. Yeah, anything else? Lepas. As for the structure, enterprise way of doing things. I mean, Terraform is generally enterprise or not. I think, okay. Until I think I actually got something to show that working in teams. Tapi tunjuk nanti. Kalau separate file, macam mana Terraform tahu nak execute block file mana dulu. Okay, so this is actually one of the interesting properties of Terraform. Macam mana dia nak tahu kan. For example, everything is one file or everything is in different file. Terraform tak kisah. Yang dia tengok semua mula-mula dia akan pass through all the .tf file. And then if I'm not mistaken, Terraform dia ada pakai something like that juga. Yeah, so essentially, literally in Terraform itself, dia is smart enough to figure out the dependency. For example, here kat sini kan, kita buka RDS. So let's say even if we put this in a different file, let's say I put this in the different file, rds.tf. So mula-mula Terraform akan pass through all the .tf file. Lepas tu bila dah pass through, dia akan tengok resources dalam ni. And then bila dia nampak yang macam ni kan, contoh module.network. So that means this module is dependent on the module, the network module. So mula-mula dia akan actually pass through the finish the network module call first, create semua benda resource dalam ni, baru dia akan create resources untuk RDS ni. So that's how Terraform does it. I think internally they use what is it called, that acyclical graph thing. Yeah, directed acyclical graph. Wait, does that mean it? Is it? Yeah, directed acyclic graph. Yeah, this one. So that's in general what Terraform uses also internally lah. Si Farhan, soalan. Contoh nak letak EC2 dalam VPC, kat Terraform ada define resource VPC dengan EC2. EC2 dalam VPC, kat Terraform ada define resource VPC dengan EC2. Dalam code perlu kau define VPC dulu sebelum EC2. Oh, I think this one related to the which one goes first, right? So dalam Terraform, generally you should be able to just put it all in one file like this or all in one folder. And then kalau ada dependency macam ni, contoh ada explicit dependency macam VPC, lepas tu that EC2 pakai that dependency, Terraform will figure it out itself. Tapi Terraform also provides you with this depends on parameter yang maknanya kat sini kita boleh explicitly cakap. So instead of waiting for Terraform to figure out dan macam mana siapa dulu yang kena create, kita boleh explicitly cakap sini, okay, this module RDS relies on module.network. So that means in whatever happens, Terraform will always create module.network first, even though walaupun kita macam sini kita tak ada pakai, contoh kita tak ada pakai. So Terraform will always create module.network first and only module.rds. So sometimes you need to do that if the dependency is not clear like this one lah. See. Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank the Zaf for the exactly same thing. Cool. Kita sambung sikit my points here. What else I have here? So I think another thing is other than the module, Zaf pakai Terraform TS bus.json. So this one, I guess maybe a question for you, Zaf. Like why do you choose to pass it all using this Terraform TF bus.json?
Using two actually. This one is for my local spin up. So kalau start dengan local, I'll just copy paste this into the real, the not so example one. But I'm using the app.terraform.io as well. So if I'm using that, I'll just pass the variable directly as an object into the envs. So you can
Which one?
either use this. It's not this one. Yeah, it's example.terraform.tf-json, right? So obviously I won't commit my credentials into here.
Yeah. Of course,
I'll just copy paste this into the exact one. But if I'm using the app.terraform.io, then I'll just pass that as env. It use object as well, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Oh, you're talking about Terraform Cloud, is it?
Yes, that's the one.
So essentially you're okay, define all the environment variables from on Terraform Cloud lah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then this one. Actually aku ada one question nak tanya. So this is actually quite interesting. Nampak kat sini Zaf, like you pakai this global app variable for the modules, most of the modules, and then you just pass in this var.app, right?
Yeah.
So probably your question is why do macam pakai this one global app variable instead of manually specifying each of the variable one by one for each module?
Firstly, I don't have the best practice in this. My thought process is I want something that I can globally access. We don't have autoloader in Terraform or something like that.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to try to pass all the information into the children. So this is what I did.
Okay, cool. I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's just your what the thing, apa benda yang kita nak consider lah. So For example, bila buat macam ni, I think you probably have to spend a bit in terms of you can see here, in terms of variable.tf, right? This crafting of this variable with such a big, I think this big object thing, and then setting up the default there. That's one of the thing you might be macam lose sikit lah bila pass in this one thing as a big object instead of one by one, is that sebab Terraform in the more recent one they actually ada Terraform precondition and post condition. So literally for each of the variable, input variable validation, that's one thing. You can validate the condition one by one. So let's say if you want to use this kind of validation for your variable, boleh pakai dengan app ni. Cuma it gets more complicated lah, but you have a lot of things. So if you want to do that kind of validation, so it's easier if you pass all the variables one by one instead of one global app variable. So it's one thing lah to comment there.
Oh, nice. Today I learned.
Yeah. Okay, so this is probably specific to AWS resources stack with environment application and name. So I think there's actually Zaf did some best practices here. You know, they pakai but for all the resources they ada pakai tags ni kan for each of the resources, and then you specify the tags, all of them. But actually in AWS provider specifically, you can actually do it like this from the provider. So what you can do. So here you got this. So yeah, oops, sorry. So you got this. You can actually do like default tags, and then you can pass it this way. And then what it means here, so on the provider level, kita dah tag lah. So all the resources that will be created by this provider akan ada this tags. And then for example name here, kalau kita nak override and so there's what do you call that, precedence. First the lowest level is this. Tapi bila contoh kita nak override the name tag here, kita nak actually bila kita buat macam ni lah. So if you do this, and then you can literally override it. So the more specific one will override the provider level tags lah. So that's one of the thing you can do when using AWS provider. So far yang kita tahu AWS provider je lah ada, yang lain macam tak ada lagi setakat ni. So that's one thing lah. Oh, let's do other things. There's one actually quite interesting wrapper around this secret manager. So if I understand correctly, Zaf, macam kau ada this wrapper right untuk pass in the secret or what? Can you explain a bit more?
Terraform. So basically before I start the whole Terraform setup, ada macam contoh password kita nak auto generated ke apa kan. So
Yep.
before the whole thing Terraform spin up, this is what I did first. I define what are the password, what are the username and everything, and I'll store it somewhere safe. And then I'll pass this into this one here. It's going to deploy into the secrets manager. And once the whole Terraform spin up, it's going to fetch those credentials.
Okay, cool. So this is actually a nice thing. When you're a developer pakai Terraform, that's why you see this. Right, interesting. What else do I have here? Passing in secret. Yeah, okay. I'll just go.
Costing so far less untuk AWS saja less than 15 to 16 euro. I'm using euro for this one. It's very cheap. Yeah.
Yep.
Excluding Cloudflare, I think Cloudflare is around 25, the lowest value. Yeah, it's around somewhere around that.
What else? Yeah, in terms of passing in secrets. So this just one comment on this. So I think probably ada Terraform state file secret sensitive data and state. So for all Terraform users, this is one thing probably you should know also. Semua benda yang hosted dekat macam kat sini contoh kan, Zaf ada pass in the username and password. Macam kita kat tadi, Terraform dia akan pakai state file, and then all the parameters that you pass in here will actually exist in the state file itself, unencrypted. So sebab tu you should really take care of your state file. You should never commit it to Git, because it will contain your secret lah. Like for example here, DB username and DB password will be in the in the state file itself. So usually on the enterprise level, you would first you will use a remote Terraform state. So instead of locally, for example, Zaf dia pakai tadi kat sini I think dekat prod ada. Dia pakai Terraform Cloud, so Terraform Cloud automatically will protect your state file for you. Tapi contoh kalau you pakai S3 as the untuk tempat simpan the state file, you have to make sure that the S3 bucket cannot be public, and ideally your S3 bucket should be encrypted lah, because it can contain sensitive data inside, and you should also control who have access to the state file. If not, they can just get the password from there. So one thing, yeah, okay. Yeah, there's different thing. So I think that's mainly it lah for my in terms of this code base. I got another project here. Like I want to show what other ways you can like, structure your Terraform projects. So I have two here, one by application, by service. So when I say service here, it's like when you service for example in AWS, kita ada service untuk semua ni, CloudFront, EC2, RDS. So ni yang I think bila if you're tak nak fikir panjang on the how to structure Terraform, usually people will go for this kind of directory structure. So bila nampak kat sini, so literally they just put all the resources inside for each of the folder. So like what say all the EC2 instances kita akan create kat sini. So let's say even though the EC2 instances is not related to each other, so it's resource AWS instance, say for the for project A, and then you create kat sini, tiba-tiba and then the unrelated project pun you letak dekat kat sini like project B. So that's one the easiest way you can put your Terraform resource. Tapi what the downside of that is that, so imagine kau punya project tu ada banyak lama-lama, they got more bigger and bigger. We have a lot of EC2 instances in our AWS account. So what you will notice first is that your bila dah besar, your Terraform plan, so Terraform plan will get slower because macam aku ada explain mula tadi, like every time draw. So every time you wanna put something in that state file, in that same folder, so AWS bila run plan, dia akan AWS actually will make an API call to the AWS API for each of the resources. So for example kat sini bila ada satu instance, bila kita run AWS plan dekat project ni, dia akan make for each of this one there will be one API call to the AWS. So whenever it gets a big, then satu it will take longer, and then the other one is you might get rate limited. So just from my personal experience lah, because I actually once I did a module, I wrote a module for GitHub yang akan query all the users in our organization. So literally there's a lot lah. So actually bila tengah Terraform plan tu tiba-tiba dapat error GitHub rate limited. So tak boleh nak call, so kena tunggu. So that's one of the things that you should pay attention to. Make sure that your state file is not too big. So what is too big? I think that depends on your organization. I think it's for me. I don't have a explicit number. Tapi macam if you notice that the Terraform file plan takes long, like for example more than 10 seconds or like more than 30 seconds, definitely you should look into separating it. So one of the way you can separate it, so instead of putting all of it in the same folder like this, I will actually based on my experience, I will put it by application. So for example, in your company, there's a lot of microservices, and one microservices for all resources related to that microservices, you would separate it into like this. So for AWS, I'll put it by service. So this is one of the way I would do it, and then we will still probably will separate it like this because of we want to. So this is another way we want to prevent what we call blast radius, smaller blast radius. Smaller blast radius. So what does it mean by blast radius? For example, kat sini kan, bila kita ada document DB is a database. So usually bila kita create database, kita tak change banyak sangat. So probably create once and then we forgot lah, tak tukar sangat and just send data to it. Tapi some of the resources probably like IAM, there's a lot of changes, probably a lot of developer onboarding, so you need to give them the IAM permission and everything. So we don't want to suddenly tiba-tiba ada orang tukar something dekat sini, tiba-tiba they affected document DB. So by putting it in totally separate folders altogether, kita have the smaller blast radius, nanti bila kita tukar IAM apa, there are no unintended changes that will be affected, they will affect our document DB cluster. So that's an example lah. So this, keep the state small, same thing. I think here, plan speed, so smaller blast radius. This is what I mentioned just now, split unrelated resources to different projects. So one of the advantage bila kita buat tu is like, so kalau you pakai these tools like Atlantis, what Atlantis will do, so contoh for example, we have this big project again here. Kat sini kita ada macam-macam EC2, right? Lepas tu bila someone want to change this folder, so let's say user A dia nak tambah project satu lagi, dia nak tambah project C, so dia akan create PR, dia kata dia buka PR, and then another user dia nak tambah project D. So what Atlantis will do, bila dia run plan, dia akan lock the state file, so maknanya tak ada orang lain yang boleh buat changes to that folder. So even though it's unrelated project, tapi kita akan block orang lain, kita akan so maknanya the user A ni tadi dia kena tunggu dulu bila project C ni siap, baru dia boleh apply, baru dia boleh plan untuk project D. So that's one of the thing consideration lah. You should take it into control. So prevent blocking errors and go faster. And then like I said earlier before, to prevent merge conflicts. var X. Oh, yeah. Ya, audit in the soalan AWS instance tu dari banyak kali boleh letak dalam var X or not recommended, better to be explicit. So I think it's okay, you can do it. So one of the example you can do that. So instead of manually defining it like this, you can do it this way. So this is a Terraform punya construct lah. So you can do for each, and then you can pass it in, for example, like local instances. So for example, you will have something like this, locals, instances, and then you do have like a project. This one, we just put this project. Do some config like name, for example. Yeah, say for example like this. And then you got a project B is okay, yeah. Something else. So boleh. So this is a Terraform construct. So I will do this Terraform for each. Can refer to this. But in general, it will actually do a loop. So do I have a valid provider? Boleh try. Tak ada provider, tak boleh. No. To show if it can. How will be can do that. Salah. Okay, salah, susah. Tapi but the result will be the same lah. It will create both of this and then using for loop, and then you will use this project A and project B as the key. So yeah, you can do that. So instead of manually specify one by one, you can just specify like that. Yeah, okay, boleh guna count. There's probably one thing I want to mention about using count or for each. So count. So Terraform ada dua untuk to do the similar things, count and for each. But personally, for me, I would use for each. So let's put the example side to side lah. So this for each, and then we have another one, count. something like this. So difference dia bila bila kita run plan nanti, kalau count tu, let's count kena pakai ni tu for each. Jadi apa nak ada? This is for each. Hmm. Issue. Okay, so this is for count, and this is for each. Okay, betul. Okay, think so this will work. So different dia nanti kalau contoh bila kita buat for each, result akan jadi bila kita run AWS stick file, dia akan tulis macam ni lah, AWS instance for each. So sorry, dot for each, and then kita akan ada key dia, satu project A, and then another one project B. So this is how AWS Terraform will manage it. But if we do it using count, akan jadi count 0, count 1. So difference is bila both in terms of the result, they will be the same. Both will be created with the same result. It's just that bila kita nak manage Terraform state, why I prefer for each. Bila nampak sini contoh kan, akan tunjuk something changes, sini tunjuk kosong atau satu je. So it doesn't show which one actually. Tapi bila kita guna for each, dia akan tunjuk exactly which key it is. So which project, which instance actually change. And then one other thing, contoh kat sini, count is order sensitive. So that means bila contoh kat sini ada orang mari, tiba-tiba dia tambah satu benda kat sini lagi. Satu lagi instance kat atas. Tiba-tiba all this dia akan replace. Terraform akan detect yang dulunya, yang zero yang dulu ni, tiba-tiba dia jadi nombor satu pula. Sorry. Dia jadi nombor satu pula. And then the zero will be a new one. So I think Terraform will recreate the resource. Will try to recreate the resources. So tu bila pakai count, they have to make sure that you don't change the order. So that's one thing. Yeah, bila pakai for each, that doesn't happen lah. So that's why for me, I would prefer using for each. And then also if you look at some of the Terraform AWS modules, so this is one of the cool community project. So on the Terraform AWS modules, ada banyak modul sini. This module also dia banyak pakai for each instead of count because of the same issue that I already mentioned just now lah. Okay. Yep. So Odin, how usually people create one template and make it reusable? So this is actually a perfect way, what use case for using modules lah. For example, nampak kat sini, yang Zaf buat tadi. Dia ada module for core, there are the module for this and all this, and then even like this. So you can actually put also a module with both, not just the same resources. Sini Zam dia buat cuma the elastic cache resources, but you can literally have a one module where like add module, and then inside that you have probably EC2 resources, and then you probably have like RDS resources. But I mean, you can do that. But like I said just now, in terms of the module composition, try not to make it too deeply nested. For example, kat sini tiba-tiba dia call module lain pula. So boleh, just I think 2 levels of nesting is the max you should go for lah. Nanti it becomes too hard to maintain. So yeah, audience for this one boleh pakai module lah. For each dengan this sama ke kat resources? Oh sorry, which one? Bilang lah. This one? Just bilang. Modules core app staging project state. Is it this one? I think so.
I think it was the one you presented just now.
Oh yeah, sorry.
This
It's here. Okay,
yeah, this one.
cool. Thanks. What was the question again? Modules and for each dengan this sama ke kat resource? For each? What do you mean by this? Oh, okay. So this okay, macam mention mula-mula tadi dekat mula-mula tu. So this is part of a Terraform naming structure, resource structure. So we have the resource type here, and then the actual resource type here, and then this is the name of the resource that Terraform remember. So kalau aku letak div this kat sini, dia tak kisahlah. So in the end state it will be this. Tapi bila kau letak count kat sini, so in a way it's just this is just for one way you can use it. For example, later tiba-tiba ada resource something else, AWS RDS ke, so tak yeah, this might confuse people. A test. So nanti bila contoh kalau tiba-tiba nak refer kan, nak pakai nama sama or something, so nanti boleh pakai AWS instance dot this dot blah blah blah, one of the examples. So this part of the Terraform code is just naming for that resource that Terraform you can use in Terraform. For example, bila tukar jadi for each, so that means bila nak pakai kat sini, kita kena pakai for each. Tu je. In terms of the resource itself, it doesn't change anything. So this is more for as an ID for Terraform to keep track of it. Yep. That's it. Yes, macam yang Zaf tunjuk tu. So this what I meant lah just now. Bila dia akan tunjuk dalam state file. So this one module version master Cloudflare record app, and then this is the name that yang dia pakai app cf set record, app cf set record. So macam tadi bila pakai tu dia akan tunjuk for each kat sini, dan dia akan tunjuk this kat sini, macam tu lah. Yeah, I mean mostly from my side, I think I don't have much else. Kalau ada question soalan lagi nak tanya, dah boleh. Yeah, I think just to summarize it, into what I've been doing just now. So first, especially if you're working in a team, you should definitely use remote state. So Terraform remote state, dia ada banyak option boleh pakai. No lah, this one. So by default, bila contoh ada satu project, bila kita run Terraform init, dia akan try to save the state locally. Let me try this one. This. Resource, database instance. Is it good? Yeah. Okay. Tak boleh. Saya nak apply sebab tak ada ni. Tapi by default, okay, ni dia dah create. Bila korang plan ni, dia akan create Terraform TF state. So by default, will create the state locally. Tapi ideally, if you work in a remote team, you don't want the state to be overwritten by each other, so use remote state. And then there are a lot of places you can put the remote state in. But one of the way is to put it in S3 lah. So S3, so you can use that. Yep. Contoh remote state. Ya, kalau pakai Terraform Cloud, boleh save Terraform the remote state at Terraform Cloud lah. Which is a good product. And then, especially if you're working team, no local apply. Because it's prefer to use this tool like either Terraform Cloud ke Atlantis ke kalau tak nak bayar. Because in general, bila run Terraform ni, you really need a lot of permissions. So you don't want everyone to directly have access to change all the things. Usually you will go to, if you go do it to Atlantis, Alif has some traces like logs of all the things. I think for enterprise use case, especially you would use this Terraform Cloud where you have an audit logging feature where you know who applied that resource and create and everything. So that one's really useful lah for enterprise data for audit stuff. And then also keep the state small macam cakap tadi. So ideally you plan ahead. Even kalau tak boleh plan ahead pun boleh refactor your Terraform code using tools like Terraform move or Terraform import block. So these are the things that you can use. Terraform move block essentially is for refactoring Terraform command, your Terraform folder. So ada move block syntax. Maknanya so earlier kita nama dia nama A, tiba-tiba nak tukar nama dia nama B, so can do it something like this. Yeah, there's a lot that you can do, but try to keep it small. The state small. That means not many resources in that, so that it will be fast for you. And then smaller bus radius, and then less about merge conflict and stuff. So yeah. Then yang export from production to first thing you need to do like before you start change things. Macam mana tu? Oh yes, yes. Local stack, definitely. Kalau macam takut kan, takut kena bayar AWS anything, you use local stack. So local stack will prevent macam dia menyamar jadi AWS. So boleh run against Terraform against local stack. Lukman, boleh ke delete resources yang bukan di spawn from TF itself? Okay, that's one of the topics. So you can do that. So essentially Terraform has this command called import, Terraform import. So what Terraform import will do, so what Terraform import, so the goal is kita dah ada existing resource, jadi macam dah ada existing EC2 instance yang kita tak create pakai Terraform, kita create pakai AWS console. Lepas tu right now we want to manage it using Terraform. So how you do, you need to import, and then usually if you go to say here Terraform AWS instance, for each of those resource here, dia akan ada instruction how to import the resource. Example here dia cakap, okay nak import ni boleh pakai ID of the instance. So you get the instance ID, lepas tu dekat in your code you can do like this. Let's say this is the instance yang kita nak import, kena create dulu kat sini nama matching, and then we can import like for example this one. We want to import to this resource the EC2 instance with this ID. So bila dah buat macam tu, nanti bila dah successfully import, bila dah run TF plan, TF apply, and then bila kita nak delete means we just delete it, just uncomment it out lah. And then bila kita run the next time kita run TF apply, dia akan try to delete the resource lah. Okay, that's Terraform import is really useful, especially bila dah ada like existing accounts and then kita nak start managing using Terraform. Yes. So this is another thing Zaf ada mention pasal data. So this is one, if you learn Terraform, definitely there's two types of things. So one is data source, another is resource. So for example here, kalau kat sini resource AWS instance, akan ada juga AWS instance data source. So what the difference is, bila resource, maknanya kita nak start manage the Terraform benda ni dengan Terraform, maknanya kita kena semua bila nak buat changes kena pakai Terraform. Tapi data source is just like the name goes lah, it's just kita nak refer to an existing resource in the our account, in the AWS account, tapi kita tak nak manage resource ni pakai Terraform pun. So and then dekat Terraform registry dia ada different page for it. So for example ni resource AWS instance, tapi kalau kita cari AWS instance dia akan ada sini resource, kat bawah ni kita ada satu lagi nama data source. So data source ni dia akan give you, kita boleh query using instance ID or use some filters, and then it will expose all the attributes yang ada dekat resource ni lah, macam kita nak refer to it. So all the attributes yang ada kat sini, arguments here, all the attributes yang ada sini kita boleh pakai data source tadi. So you just want to refer to it tapi tak nak manage pakai Terraform. Alright, any other questions? Kan dah pukul 10, I think boleh start wrap. I think wrap things up lah, dah sejam. Yeah, kalau ada any questions, maybe one more minute. Thank you also, Zaf.
Thank you, Iman, for sharing. I learned a lot today from you.
Nanti next project banyak ni Terraform lah.
Oh, maybe mungkin boleh share macam mana orang nak start dengan Terraform, apa-apa yang orang boleh start ke? How should I get started with Terraform?
I think especially because Terraform, I think the main concern is cost lah kan, especially bila nak pakai dengan AWS. So boleh start dengan local stack yang Zul ada buat share link tadi, this local stack. So if local stack, you can use it so that nanti tak adalah risau pasal AWS build. So just start there, try to create AWS EC2 instances, try to create RDS or something like that. Just play around with it, and then yang best pasal Terraform is like you can apply, so TF apply or Terraform apply. Terraform apply, and then bila dah puas hati kan, rasa tak nak, dah boleh create successfully, boleh terus destroy. So yang tu pasal paling best bila tak nak belajar lah, just destroy, and then everything, all the resources you just created just now boleh destroy terus. So tak payah nak risau macam terlupa nak delete something, tiba-tiba kena charge ke. So that's one thing lah. And then in terms of the resource itself, definitely refer to the registry a lot. Macam nak create data source or nak create AWS resource kan. Baca argument reference ni, apa benda yang dia kena, macam ni cakap optional, so tak perlu supply. Biasanya example usage pun best, macam banyak benda yang boleh buat. Just refer to this and try to see what it goes, what it do lah. It does, that's it, I think. Especially if you're pakai Terraform, you'll definitely use this Terraform registry a lot. Really helpful. And then I would say boleh belik-belik dekat docs ni, all the syntax, all data source providers. Terraform docs, I think it's quite good, well documented. Aku belajar banyak benda, all the best practices from the docs itself lah.
Nice, setuju.
Alright.
Dia tak ada plugin VS Code kan?
Ada actually. Aku pakai
Ya, ada.
for syntax highlighting. Yeah. This one, HashiCorp official one. So dia sekali dengan language server. So kalau macam aku open tadi kan, dia ada ni. And then what it will do, contoh kalau aku pakai ni, dia tak boleh ni lah. Tapi kalau macam contoh macam kau tadi, project kau kan, main.tf, dia pakai module, dia boleh terus buka ni. And then kalau module tu dekat macam online punya module, so dia boleh terus buka, nampak kat sini lah. So that's one thing.
Oh, nice.
Tapi kadang the language server kadang terlambat sikit, so aku macam sakit hati kat kadang aku disable.
Nice.
Right. Tak ada apa-apa, I think boleh lah. Recording boleh stop.
Alright, thank you, Iman.
Stop sharing lah. Thank you everyone. Thank you for listening. Nampak dah dalam ni.